Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to PhilDoes3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the US, that's 4 PM now that you guys have finished daylight savings, 11 AM in Australia and 12 AM in the UK. Let's pull up the Max model we were working on last week, it's Garden Terrace. I want to shout out a thank you to McLovin for following my Twitch channel. I appreciate it. I appreciate it every time you guys follow me on Twitch. So thank you. Hope all you guys are well. Checking everything's still working. We had some problems at the end of last week with the stream going offline, but everything seems to be good now. I updated to the latest version of OBS, so hopefully that'll fix any problems I was having. Seemed okay last week, so fingers crossed. Come on, Max. We were texturing up the banister railings last week, so we're going to continue doing that today. We just got to create 3 or 4 variations on the texture so that we can create a bit of variety around the outside of the model. So these banister, small banisters here, we were texturing up last week, so we're going to continue doing that. We'll create probably another 3 versions of the texture, and then we can just alternate that around the outside of the model so you don't notice that you're using the same texture. So let's jump into Mari. I should already have that open, and I do. I'm just going to minimize Max because having 2 3D viewports open can cause your graphics card to have some problems sometimes, so just something to be aware of. This is our first version, but create another 3, and we're just going to do that by varying the texture up a bit. So I'm just going to create a new layer. That way I can just turn layers off and on to export as I need and still save the original project. So let's pull up that texture we were working on with, I should say. I think it's this one here. Yeah, that's the one. And again, as I was saying last week, once you start modeling, it's important that you don't change the zoom on your model. Once you start texturing, don't change the zoom on your model and don't change the scale of the texture once you've started, because otherwise you're going to throw out the look of the texture once you start moving around the model. So it's just important to keep it all the same. Just scaling my texture up till it just covers the top and the bottom of those columns there. Alright, I'm going to get rid of this green on this one just by painting over with the white part of the texture. I'm going to do the same at the base just here, and same with the top just up here. That just gives that column a bit of a different look. Now it's important in Mari to always press the Alt key to bake that down, because until you bake it down it isn't assigned to the UVs on the model. For anyone that's new, I use Mari to do my 3D texturing. I just like being able to rotate the model and paint on it as I work. Substance make a good painting program for 3D as well, called Substance Painter. A lot of people like that. A lot of people use that in game development. You can of course just use Photoshop as well. There's nothing wrong with, I do a lot of work in Photoshop too, so by all means don't think you have to use a 3D painting program. You can use Photoshop. Just going to paint that black part out just in here, and I'm also going to paint it out down here, and also at the very base again. That's just creating a bit of variation on those different banisters, columns, mini columns, small columns. And maybe we'll do one more. Let's add some dirt this time to the top of this one. And again, paint out some of the middle here. And let's paint in a black mark here on the bottom of this small column. Press the Alt key to back it down. Now this red shading you're seeing along the outside of the model, again for people that are new perhaps and don't know what that is in Mari. If you go into your project tab, that's edge masking, and what that does is just prevents your texture from stretching along the sides as you paint it. So it's, sometimes I'll turn it on, sometimes I'll turn it off, just depending on what I'm painting at the time. So now that we've changed up that a little bit on that side, let's flick it around to the opposite side. I'm painting virtually directly onto the model here. I'm not angling it at all. Again, let's take out some of the dirt at the top of this one. And some through here. We'll whiten that up again so it looks a bit cleaner. And the base. Now again, I'm only doing this so I can create a bit of variation in the different textures as I copy it around the outside of the model in 3D Studio Max. So we've done that one. Let's do this one here. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop into chat and ask me. I'm happy to help if I can. If you want to pop in and say hello, that's cool too. Or if you just want to watch, then that's perfectly fine as well. Okay, I'm pressing the Alt key to bake that down. All right, now we've created a little bit of variation on this second texture. Let's go back into our image manager and pull up a dirt texture that we can start using to vary it up a bit more. So let's throw on a new layer. And let's see what this one looks like. This could be interesting. I'm going to paint over a few of these columns completely. So maybe that one, these two in the middle. And again, this is just a black and white, or grayscale, I should say, usually texture that I'm using as a dirt map. I'll maybe do this one just here. I'm just painting over the top of the original texture with this grayscale image so I can change the blending mode and turn it into more of a dirt texture. Just going to move that out of the way and press the Alt key to bake that down. Okay, now let's go over here into our layer manager and play with our blending a bit. See what darken looks like. Either darken or multiply usually. I think multiply looks a bit more interesting. I'm just going to pull it back a bit though, like that. I'm going to zoom around to the opposite side and I'm going to do the same thing again, but just choose a couple of different columns. So this time we'll choose this one here. Again, I'm working on the same layer, and you'll see as I'm painting in, I'm painting the dirt in. If you prefer to work that way so you can see what you're doing as you're doing it, then that's an option as well. You can change your layer style and then start painting on the model. Let's do this one down here. And bake that down by hitting the Alt key. Let's just throw on a new layer and add something a little bit different. Let's see what this one looks like. Now you can scale your texture up and down until you start painting with it, then you have to be careful. But with a dirt texture, you don't have to be quite as careful as you would otherwise. It's just the main texture bitmap itself you've got to watch with your painting and scaling. Dirt textures though, you should be fine. Let's rotate that around and see what that would look like. No, I don't like that one. Let's see if we can find something a little bit better. How about this one? This one could be interesting. Let's scale it down. I'm going to rotate it around. Again, with the rotation, the closer to the center, the faster it will rotate. But to have more control, rotate it from the edge of the texture here. Scale it up a bit so it fills the model. And we're working on a new layer. That should be about right. Let's paint that in a bit. And I think with this one, I'm more concerned with the white part of the texture than I am the black. So paint that in through there. Might just move that down a little bit. And move that one in a little bit. Okay, we'll bake that down by hitting the Alt key. I'm just going to move that out of the way for a minute. Let's play with our layer styles again. I think with this one, an add is probably... Yeah, no, maybe not. Screen, perhaps. Let me pull that back a bit. No, I don't like the overlay. I think maybe screen. I think we'll stick with an add, but we'll just pull it back a bit. It's going to rotate around to the opposite side here. And this time I think I'm going to work with the black part of the texture, so I'm going to rotate my texture around 180 degrees. I'm going to move it up into position. I'm actually going to scale it down to, as I said, this is a dirt texture, so you're not so concerned with scaling up and down. I think I might even throw on a new layer and change the texture. That's what am I using? Okay, what have we got here? This one. We've used this before in the model, and as I was saying, it's important to keep consistency in your model as well, in your texturing. Particularly if you're doing one large model like we are. It just helps in the believability if everything looks consistent. You're not using vastly different textures for everything. So I'm just going to paint along the bottom here. Bake that down. I might skip those two in the middle and move to just the one on the end here, but I'll move the texture down a little bit. Okay, we'll bake that down. Alright, let's play with our layers. What's it darken like? And pull it back a bit. Alright. Let's export this texture as our second version. So I'm going to not there. I want to go into my channels folder here on the color channel and export flattened, export everything flattened. We're in our rework folder. It remembered our file name from the last project, so we're just going to call this one small banister columns underscore painted underscore R2 for revision 2 and export all patches, and we're saving it as a target file.tga. You don't have to use Targa, you can use TIFF, PNG, JPEG if you like. JPEG, not so good because you lose some color information. With a target file, it's lossless, so you won't lose any color information in your texture. I'm just going to save that project, and we'll jump back into Max. I'll open my material editor. This is our first version of the texture just here, so let's create a new second version. I'm just going to drop in a standard shader and a bitmap. Hey Galen, how's things? I had a good weekend, yeah, nice and relaxing, just chilling out at home. How was your weekend? We'll jump into our rework folder. Small banister column painted R2, that's the one we just exported from Murray. We'll hook that up to the diffuse channel and show shaded and show realistic. Okay, I'm just going to close my material editor down, zoom in a bit on our model. Select our columns, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. I'm going to go into my modify tab. "16 days to do the animation, gee. How long is the animation?" It's either really long or really complex. It takes 16 days to complete. Do you have a separate PC that's doing the rendering for you, or do you use your main computer? Because I couldn't live without using my PC for 16 days while it's rendering in the background. "1 minute animation," okay. Yeah, sounds about right. Still, it must be pretty complex though still, for it to take 16 days. What are you using again for your 3D software? Did you say on your Mac? Okay, yeah. Did you say you use Maya or using Max? I can't remember exactly which program you said you were using. But yeah, rendering it out on a separate PC is always good. That's why I have my two computers here. I generally render on one and work on the other. I've got another couple that are in the network upstairs that I network up together. Going to go into my... Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, I'd love to see it. What was that command again? Permit. Just 1 second, and I'll give you permission to post a link if you want. Or either that, or you can whisper it to me if you prefer. You've got permission now, Galen. So if you want to post a link, that's cool. Use Blender. Oh, your Blender's really cool. Okay, just let me... Do you mind if the stream sees it, or would you prefer I look at it privately? It's up to you, dude. I'm happy to look at it on my second monitor if you'd prefer to keep it private. I guess if you're posting the link in chat, anyone can click on it, so I'm assuming... I'll wait till I hear from you in chat, but just let me know if you prefer I look at your animation privately or not. Okay, cool. All right, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the still as well. So this is an animation that Galen created, an untextured animation as a proof. That's cool. That's very cool. What was that? What's it approved for? Let's just check out the still as well. Okay, and this is the coloured version, yeah? Very nice. Texturing's nice. You softened up these edges, yeah? The hard edges on the countertop. Oh, fellow streamers channel. Oh, cool. I didn't know you did that stuff for other streamers. That's really cool. Yeah, I like the texturing work. The shadowing work is good, so the lighting is quite good. And like I said, just make sure you've softened up the edges. I can't tell exactly from the image whether you have or not. Oh, cool. As long as you bevel the edges, then that's cool. Like I said, I just wasn't sure because I couldn't see too well in this image. But yeah, as long as you beveled up those edges, then that's good. Like, yeah, I like the texturing. It looks really cool. These little pieces of toast are very cute. Oh, that's a good idea. The old linoleum, the seam, yeah. I was looking at that. I was trying to work out exactly what was going on there. Yeah, good idea. Cool. Well done. So 16 days. That animation is going to take you 16 days to render out. Jeez. What resolution are you rendering it in? Okay, so I have that selected. Is the garden through the window, is that actually 3D or is that an image? Because if it was, if you're not going to be rotating your camera where you can see outside, I would use an image to speed up your render. If you're going to be moving the camera to the window or moving it outside the window or anything like, or coming from outside inside. Oh, yeah, okay. The particles, yeah, particle work always slows the renders right down. That's why view sometimes can be very slow to render as well, because it generally uses a lot of particle work in the atmospheres, and that's what slows their render down quite a lot most of the time. Oh, cool. Cylinder with an image on it. That's the way to do it. I often do that too, even in Vue, because Vue can do 3D environments beautifully, but their renders can take forever. So when I start rendering out the beauty shot for this garden terrace I'm working on, I'll show you what I mean, but I generally sometimes will use a plane with an image on it as a cheat in the background with a 3D environment in the foreground. You can get, it reduces your render times hugely, and you can't tell the difference. It looks great. As you can see from some of my product shots on my Creative Market store, a few of those I've used that trick with, and they come out really well. So I'll show you guys that when I render up the garden terrace in Vue, when I finish texturing it up. But that looks really cool. I'm sure that that they'll like it. You didn't say though what resolution are you rendering it at? Is it 1080p, like 1920 by 1080, or are you doing it higher? Oh, sorry, you did say 720p. Okay, my apologies, Galen. Okay. Now I'm just going to try and see if I can 720p. Yeah, I saw that. Sorry, I wasn't reading closely enough. 720p. Okay, cool. 1280 by 720. 22 days at 1080. Okay. This is why I don't generally, when I do a lot of my work, it's stills, because animation can take forever. That's another reason though why I really like Unreal's engine, because it gives you really good quality. I mean, not rendering quality, but good quality, and it's immediate. You can see results immediately. That's the great thing about the Unreal Engine. And they're getting better. Their render is pretty good for a game renderer. But like I said, still not the quality of a proper render though. A lot of architectural companies are actually using the Unreal Engine now to do their walkthroughs, their 3D walkthroughs of some projects. Not all, but some. Now let me see. If I go into my Utilities tab, into my channel info, I'm just going to select this one. I'm going to see if I can copy across my yeah, your render farm. If they can be very temperamental sometimes, particularly if you haven't used it for a while. Networking, TCP/IP can be a real pain in the butt. I know with Eon's View though, they use their render cows. And generally they're pretty good. You just load up each client on each machine and it grabs them as it needs them. But even that cannot work sometimes for whatever reason. 3D, you got to love it, right? Let's copy the UVs from channel 1 and see if I can paste them into this one. May work, it may not. No, it won't let me paste them across, so let me see here. We have a straight section there. Let's not fight fate, let's work with this one here. I'm going to select these columns. I'm going to go into isolation mode and I'm going to attach them. So they're just one object. Let's end isolate there. Now let's have a look at the channel info again. Okay, it'll let me paste the UVs into that one because it's the same type of model. And let's assign that second texture we created. Let me just have a look at what's going on here. I'm noticing this, the dark texture on the bottom I think is a bit heavy. So I'm just going to jump quickly back into Mari. And that dark texture I think was the last one that we put on. Yep. I'm just going to pull that back a bit because I think it's just a bit too in your face. And I'm going to re-export the flattened texture again. I'll keep the name the same. So we just export over the top of the one we've been using. Jump back into Max. Just reload the texture if the texture doesn't want to show up again like that. If it shows up black in the material editor, just hit the reload button. It just refreshes the cache so it shows back up again. And that's better. It looks much more natural. The other, it was just too dark before. So now we've got two variations on that front texture. We had to make them different, just like we did when we created the two textures here for the railing here at the front. Just so, because generally if you're going to do a render, you're going to see them both at the same time, so it's important to make sure that they're both unique. If you weren't going to see them both at the same time, say you were rendering it maybe like that, it wouldn't be quite so necessary, but generally if people are going to do a render on this, they're going to want to render it like that. So you will see both of them generally at the same time. Now I can't copy these textures across to these curved sections because I think, is that one object? I'm just checking that it's actually a group. Let me isolate that and ungroup it. Let's attach these together and see if we can maybe do it that way. When I work, I work in individual meshes, then I'll group them together. And I do that rather than attaching them at the time in case I want to make any changes. It's easier then just to ungroup it, move it and regroup it, as opposed to unattaching it. And I group them so that when I copy them around the outside of the model, it's just easy to move them as one group and keep them all consistent, as opposed to trying to do each one individually, or as I said, attaching them all and then doing it that way. Because when I do a group, I'll group those, I'll group the banister outside columns. You see that they're part of the same group here with these supports underneath. But I don't want that to be part of that texture. So if I attached all of that to copy it around the outside of the model, I'd then have to unattach sections to texture them separately. But just by grouping them, you can move them easily. They all look consistent, and it's easy to ungroup. Easier to ungroup than to detach. Detach, I mean, you know, it's relatively easy to do, but this is an easier way to do it. So now that we've got our columns all separate, let's see if we can copy the UVs over or not. It may let us, it may not. I may have to UV map it uniquely. Okay, it's going to let me paste the UVs in. Let's see if it'll work though when we actually add a UV map. Okay, it did, so that's cool. All we're going to do now is go back into Mari and make this one a little bit different. So let's do that now. We'll jump into Mari, back into our original texture here. I'm going to turn off the two layers we added to make this one unique, and I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to jump back into our original bitmap texture we're using to texture them up. Again, I'm going to move directly onto the model. In fact, I'll use my keys here. The number 3 key in the keypad will get you a direct view from the front of the back. We will move our texture and scale it up till it just covers our columns again. And remember, we've got to keep everything consistent. Let's get rid of the dirt in this one. And again, I have edge masking, I should say, turned on. Thanks, Biff, for liking my tweet. And thanks for doing a thumbs up on one of my YouTube videos. Cool of you. We'll get rid of that bit through there. We'll get rid of this bit down here. And this bit up here on the top. And we'll throw a bit of dirt on, I think, this one here. And maybe a bit down here on the base. Okay, let's bake that down by hitting the Alt key. When do you stream, Galen? You should let me know and I'll check you out while you're working as well. I'm quite happy to do that. I like watching other guys doing 3D modeling as well. It's always fun to watch. Let's get rid of some of the dirt here. And maybe we'll add a bit of a different dirt pattern through here, or lichen pattern, I should say. And maybe the one on the end here, we will. I was going to use. I guess I could. I just want to try and avoid any repetition of the texture, so any large sections that are repetitive. 5 a.m. Mountain Time in the US. Oh, okay. 5 a.m. What time would that be for me? Jeez. I'll come and check you out next time you're streaming if I'm around and up. Because yeah, I like to watch other guys doing 3D work too. And you're always in my chat chatting, which is always good of you. So I'd like to return the favour. Because it does. It's always nice when you guys chat to me in the chat. Even though I'm working, I always like chatting to you. So feel free to jump in and say hi or ask me a question if you aren't sure about something that I'm doing or something that you're doing you'd like some help with. 12 hours from now. Okay, so all right. Might be starting to get a bit late for me. I'll see if I'm still up though around that time, and if I am, I'll check out the channel. I'm just going to fix up that texture through here. I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to bake that down. Yeah, no, if I'm still awake, I'll check you out. Can't promise anything though, because yeah, it's starting to get a bit late for me. That'll be around 12:30 or 1 in the morning, my time. Okay, let's throw on a new layer, and let's throw on a dirt texture. So let's grab, let's see what this one looks like. Okay, again, this is a dirt texture, so feel free to scale this one up and down and move it around. Let's try this one, we'll see what this looks like. It's on a new layer, so if we don't like it, we can easily remove it. And again, if you want to change the layer style before you paint the dirt texture on, then that's perfectly fine as well. I just prefer to be able to see exactly what I'm painting on, and I find it easier to do it before I change the layer style up here. That's the great thing about painting in 3D. You don't. There are a lot of different ways you can work. And just because I show you one way as well, as to the way I do things, people do the same things different ways, and they're all perfectly valid. It's whatever works for you. There's no one way that's the right way. It's whatever way you like to work is the right way. So just because I do it this way doesn't mean that's the right way to do it, or it's the way you should do it. It just means I'm just showing you my process to do things.